Let's talk to Richard Tice, because I need to talk to somebody sensible. That last bloke did my head in. Chris Southworth, Secretary-General of the International Chamber of Commerce. No wonder Britain's in the bloody toilet. Richard, a very good morning to you.
Well, having listened to your previous guest, I'm not sure I can use the word good, but it is certainly morning after the night before.
I mean, forgive me for dismissing everything that he said, but, I mean, did he say anything that was of any use to man or beast at all?
I think he was living in a parallel universe, to be honest. I've never come across the International Chamber of Commerce UK. It sounds just like some form of quangocracy. It really does.
Yeah.
And he was just completely out of touch with the reality of what's going on in the world. You've only got to look at today's newspapers. There's another 10,000 jobs under threat from a retail organisation that's right on the edge. You've got big supermarkets laying people off. I mean, the job numbers, let's just remember the job numbers in December were the worst month on record since before the pandemic.
Yeah.
All of the crises has been caused by a combination of the great blunder budget of Rachel from Accounts, which perpetuated the carnage that this government has been handed by the con-socialist Conservative government, the previous one, I'm afraid, and the levels of taxation and regulation. And now what you're seeing is basically Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves panicking, talking about long-term issues like a third runway at Heathrow that wouldn't be built for 20 or 30 years and will make no difference to the economic crisis we face this year and next year.
Exactly. And she's going to get up at some point this morning, probably during Julie Hartley-Brewer's show, and she's going to convince us, or try to convince us, that she keeps saying the word growth, and if you keep saying it often enough, people will believe it. But there is nothing that Rachel Reeves is doing to promote growth in the economy that I can see. Can you?
Nothing at all. In fact, it's exactly the opposite. Let's remember that many of the measures from that blunder budget have yet to actually take effect. Some of the increases take effect from April, such as the increase in national insurance and much more. And that's why businesses are adjusting their employment levels and, sadly, laying people off and not hiring people. What they should do is they should basically admit they got it badly wrong, scrap the whole blunder budget and start again with a short-term budget. And they've got to, and the other great thing they can do is, of course, which they won't do, is scrap net zero. You do those two things and this will turn around very quickly. But they're obsessed with net zero, as are the Tories, and you simply cannot grow. No one's grown an economy heading towards net zero at the rate we are. I think the only example of it was Sri Lanka, that basically went bust and into complete starving impoverishment. So
Fantastic.
It's not a great example.
Well, I mean, Richard, I mean, you've been in business for a long time. You've worked within the various frameworks that we've had over the years. I mean, they're talking about, you know, lifting all these regulations. Keir Starmer's written in the Times today talking about lifting regulations and sort of creating this incredible opportunity, just like that last bloke, Chris Southworth, who seemed to think that, you know, international trade would suddenly be eased if suddenly so-called regulations were lifted. I mean, is there a problem with regulations in this country?
There is a massive problem with regulation, and huge swathes of it need to be literally just chucked in the bin. Don't tweak it, don't fiddle around the edges. You just got to scrap whole swathes of it that are a huge block for business. It's a regulator's paradise, and they regulate for regulation's sake. So, yeah, there is a major crisis, but there's no way the Labour Party, that love regulation, they love big statist, tick box type culture, there's no way they're going to touch the sides, particularly when I look at the Labour MPs opposite in the House of Commons. I mean, a lot of them have come from regulators, they've come from unions, they've come from all these wonky think tanks types that create this regulation. So they're not going to do it. They might talk the talk. We've heard it all before. We used to hear it from the Tories, and you never see any action. And the only thing that happens is the country heads down the loo.
Right. And I mean, how much can this country kind of, you know, withstand, if you like, in terms of the level of investment which is not coming into the country now, the levels of borrowing that are going on, you know, £17.8 billion alone back in December for 1 month, you know, the biggest December borrowing since COVID and since before that, 2009. You know, how much more of this kind of wrecking of the economy can the country stand before we are the laughing stock of the world?
we already are the laughingstock of the world, I regret to inform you and listeners and viewers, as people steal our jobs and our money, and as smart people leave the country. So that's already baked in. How long we can carry on like this financially before the markets rebel and say we're done, I don't know. But it is sometime within the lifetime of this Parliament. We are heading towards going bust. We're heading towards bankruptcy. We need to be under no illusion about that whatsoever. You cannot keep spending more than you're earning as a nation and expect the markets to continue to bail you out when there's no growth, and we are likely heading into some scale of recession. And from everything I hear from people in the world of business, and I was with some business people last night, the omens are bad, very bad.
Yeah,
indeed.
they really are.
People will tell me I'm talking it down. The thing is, actually, you can't prescribe the solution and the right medicine to the problem until you're honest and identify what the problem is.
No.
And we know what the problem is. We're telling it as it is, and that might upset some people. It might concern some people, but we've just got to face hard facts. We are heading towards a seriously difficult place, and that reality has to be faced up to by the government in charge, and it just won't be by this lot. I mean, I've never known such a clueless bunch. I really haven't.
No, I know. It's absolutely incredible. And there's nothing wrong with describing what we are currently going through. It's not about talking down the country. It's not about talking down anything. It's about just recognising where we are. I mean, for example, the population explosion, which is currently going on. We were told yesterday by the Office for National Statistics that by 2032, we will have a population of 72.5 million. I think that is wildly underestimating what is actually going on. I think we've already got upwards of 70 million here already, and so the idea that in the next sort of 6 years or so we're only going to get another couple of million, I think we're going to have another 5 or possibly another 10 million.
Oh, these forecasts, they're always underestimates. They've always been hugely exceeded. And this is the same ONS, of course, that told us that the number that came into the country to June 23 was 670 or 80,000. And then a year later told us, I'm so sorry, chaps, we got the number wrong by a mere 230,000. It was actually 910,000. Why would anybody believe what these population forecasts show? I agree with you. I think we're already at 70 million.
Yeah.
It feels it just travelling around.
Exactly. And now more people, Richard, in Britain than there are in France, which is twice the size.
At least twice the size. No, I think the population growth will be way in excess of those numbers until we have a change of government. This government won't put an immigration target on. We're quite clear that, and that's the difference with reform. We identify the problem. Yes, it might sound tough, it might sound grim, but then we say, but this is how you solve it. And the way to solve the population crisis is to have net zero immigration and to learn lessons from the new president of the United States, President Trump. And he's going to show us the way over the next couple of years in a variety of different areas, whether it's immigration, whether it's regulation, whether it's scrapping net zero. They're going to be growing like gangbusters. We're all going to be jealous as we head south. And then people will wake up and say, actually, in order to go positive again, become better off and more prosperous, we've got to dramatically change course, and there'll be a major wake-up call.
Yeah, absolutely right. Richard, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Richard Tice, Deputy Leader of Reform UK, MP, of course, for Skegness